r/AskReddit. What's something wrong you saw your parents doing as a kid, but didn't realize it was wrong until you got older? My parents always told me that they were going to the doctor quite frequently. Of course, I hated visits to the doctor and was happy to not tag along. My siblings eventually went to the doctor quite frequently when I was in high school. My fam brought it up during a holiday gathering, but I never pieced that puzzle together on my own. It was then that they revealed that going to the doctor was just a way to get me to stay home if anybody wanted to go somewhere without me. Errands, the mall, McDonald's. Dude, how annoying are you that your entire family avoided you like this? Carrot, I need to hear the other side of the story for this one, lol.
Claim your free AirPods today by clicking the first link in the description down below.
My mom sent me with her car and friend to buy an 8-ball of cocaine when I was 14. I knew it was wrong, just not how wrong. I was just excited to drive the car. Same thing happened to me but with meth. I had to walk though. The dealer refused to take my money. She sent her ducking kid. Go home, son. He actually walked me to my block and watched until I got inside. Good guy meth dealer. Lying to get out of any problem, especially those caused by their own incompetence or malfeasance. It's still something I'm working on. My first thought when I'm running late is always some fake excuse like, oh, the traffic was terrible / the checkout girl was so slow / I was attacked by zombies but I had a chainsaw so I'm fine, but that's why it's 10 AM and I'm in pajamas and not at work yet. I have to continually tell myself that a person with integrity apologizes and either offers no explanation when none is required, or when it's not helpful, or tells the truth about what happened and accepts the consequences. I hope to encourage you on this path. Telling the truth is so much more potent than lying. People can already often tell if you're lying on one level or another. On the other hand, they can much more often and easily relate to your truth. The truth is a powerful place to operate from. No story building required. I've noticed a lot of people who were beaten as children use lies to avoid punishment. This is why beating your children is absolutely stupid. When they grow up, they don't learn. I'm big now. People won't beat me without consequences. They are grown now. But they were beaten when they couldn't defend themselves. It's rare they see another way of being for themselves. My parents grew up in abusive environments and then created an abusive environment for my sibling and me. I have spent the last year identifying unhealthy interpersonal habits and fixing them. A big part has been telling the truth, even when it will make someone disappointed or angry. It's very difficult at times. And I still screw up sometimes. But it's starting to feel more natural. Some of the other stuff, like responding with intense anger to situations that would make the average person mildly irritated, and speaking calmly, even when I'm feeling angry, are much harder. And I'm still learning about what's normal / healthy and what's not. So I keep finding new things to add to my self-improvement list. In a way, it's exciting. My parents did a crap job turning me into a good person. But I'm an adult now, and I can turn myself into the exact kind of person I want to be. That's a lot of freedom. And it feels pretty good. Edit. Thank you all for the thoughtful comments. I have responded to a few, and plan to respond to more after work. You're all fantastic. Second edit. Thanks for the gold. Screaming at each other all night and throwing it. Same. Going to bed at night at the sounds of domestic violence, cursing and fighting. I became so desensitized to it. It still ducks with me how hard it is for me to be emotional to anything. I went through the same. But it has never dawned on me that this is a reason why I'm so closed off and unemotional. My mom harbored a weird-ass guy who happened to be a fugitive in our basement for about 6 months until one day a bounty hunter or plainclothes cop or something came into our house waving a gun, made 8-year-old me and my 6-year-old sister stand in a corner and dragged him out. Our mom took us to visit him in prison like 4 or 5 times over the following year. I honestly thought it was just a normal occurrence until about 3 years later when I told the story to my dad's divorce lawyer and he was shocked it had never come up before, although I suppose it's not the type of thing you bring up in court if you don't have to, and my dad, who was deployed in Kosovo at the time, had no idea it had ever even happened. Did you ever ask your friends at school about their basement fugitive? I bet your basement fugitive could have beat up their basement fugitive. Lemayona, it never came up. The mind of 8-year-old me was strange. It never even crossed my mind that any of it was out of the ordinary. Once me and my mom were at the bathroom sink brushing our teeth. After trying to brush my tongue, I looked at her and asked, "Do you ever gag when you brush your tongue?" In complete seriousness she said, "No. I got over my gag reflex when I met your dad." Years later I was brushing my teeth and thought of that and just froze on the spot. Oh, what the duck, mom? This is ducking amazing. How old were you at the time? I haven't laughed this much from something on Reddit. Young enough that it's kinda hazy. I only remember it because I was so confused. I'm gonna wager a guess and say 4 or 5. My parents are clean freaks, especially my dad. Their version of messy is leaving an article of clothing in the floor of my bedroom. Not doing my laundry every week. I have enough clothing to last me 2 weeks. Or leaving a water bottle on my dresser. And God help me if I waited until the next day to do dishes because I was tired from working all day. I'd get screamed and told I was lazy. The worst was when both of them would say that no man would ever want me because I was so messy. They said he'd see how nasty I keep my house and he'd be disgusted. Now here's the flip side. Everyone else I know claim that I'm a clean freak because of how neat everything is. Desk, car, etc. I'm constantly making sure my work areas are clean. I keep my car spotless. And I even go home from work on my lunches to clean the house. So now that you know some backstory, here's my answer to the question. My coworker came up to me a few weeks ago and told me how that weekend she laid around the house for a few days instead of cleaned the house, which she said really needed to be done. I immediately asked her what her husband said about it. I was ready to hear how he yelled at her, how they got into an argument about the mess. Especially since he works at a harder job that requires long hours. He's not a messy person and likes to keep things nice. Instead she said he came home. She explained that she had been tired all weekend and told him she didn't get anything done. He then just shrugged his shoulders. Said it was okay. Sighed that they could do it another day. And then he chilled out with her. I didn't say anything except, "Oh." She left my desk to work on a project. Not aware of how she just gave me a huge paradigm shift. I had to go to the bathroom so no one could see me cry. I never thought that there'd be any man out there who was a nice and clean guy that would accept that I had off days when it came to managing a household. I thought he'd yell at me and belittle me, or worse, leave if I wasn't on my game at all times. To know that one day I'm going to have a husband that gave me grace and love like that floored me. I'm turning 27 next month and I just found this out. Edit. Oh my gosh, I'm just speechless. Thank you all for your encouraging comments and your stories of similar situations. I'm sorry to see so many people have dealt with these issues, however please know that you all are not alone in your stories. It looks like we've all dealt with this in some form or another. Thank you all for being such a blessing to me during this time of change. I appreciate it so much. Please know that you all are worth so much more than what your parents, spouses, exes, and others have told you. God has such big plans for each and every one of you. I pray that he blesses each and every one of you and leads you onto paths that guide you into better futures. I love you, even though I don't know you. We all are family in so many ways, memories, experiences, and thoughts. I'll keep you in my prayers. Love you. Dream Girl 3. Holy hit. You ever do something and instantly hear your parents' voice in your head? If I drop something, like a bowl, I instantly tighten up on the spot and prepare for my mom to yell at me. Even though I'm almost 30 and living on my own. Our parents really duck us up. When we were loud, my mom used to duct tape our mouths shut. If we took it off she'd wrap our hands and our mouths. wrapping the tape around our heads and our hands to our legs. My mother did this too. I never realized that the vast majority of the times we were in trouble, it was just because we were loud. She only had 4 kids during the duct tape phase. Sometimes she'd tape us and lock us in a closet. I didn't realize it was wrong until I walked into the room and saw my brother duct taped to a bed. She would also force us to wear diapers when we said anything that sounded like a baby. I remember crying and screaming when I was about 4ish because she was holding me down trying to force one on me. Just because I said feet instead of feet. To this day she denies all of it. Edit. Quack quack. Wow. That's messed up. Especially that she denies it to this day. How has it affected you in life and with relationships? My dad will drive to LA with me and brothers while my mom was at work. About an hour away. He used to leave us at his friend's house while he went to do stuff for like 2 hours. Years later I realized he had a side chick and I had a half sister same age as my little brother. I kind of speculate this too with my dad. There was a year or 2 where he and my mom would fight a ton and there were lots of talks about him cheating. I was a kid at the time, so my parents would try to keep it hushed, but I had a hunch about what was going on. One time, my mom bought me a new stuffed animal, and I told her the name I decided to name it. She yelled at me and said no. Don't you ever say that name again. I was so confused, but just said okay. Years later, I find the person he cheated on my mom with, and she has a young daughter. Lo and behold, the daughter has the exact same name I named my stuffed animal. So, I'm not sure if I have a young half sister. It's still a mystery, but I'm fairly certain. Edit. I found the person he cheated on my mom with on Facebook. She added me years ago and told me not to tell my mom. I added her having no clue as to why the secrecy. My mom and I didn't have the closest relationship either growing up, so I didn't feel any need or gut feeling to tell her anything. Yeah. I didn't have the happiest childhood. My dad cheated on my mom with a woman who had the same name I named all my dolls and planned on naming my daughter one day. Totally ruined that name for me and my mom. Manipulating me by telling me how much the other one was manipulating me. Edit. New parents. Learn from this thread. I was just getting ready to comment this same thing. Did yours also talk openly about all the ways the other spouse had wronged them to change your opinion of them? Sometimes. Usually it was more vague. I'll hold my tongue and be the bigger person. But if you only knew what S/he put me through. They also both always insisted that there was a conspiracy against them, and they both said nobody tells me anything at least every other week. My mom tailgates like crazy. It is super dangerous. I don't know how she hasn't rear-ended someone yet. I don't get into her car with her anymore. My first thought was for sporting events, and I was wondering why that's dangerous. Totally confused for a while. IDK. I've been to some dangerous as tailgates. My parents argued constantly. They hated each other and still do. The only reason they never divorced is because they depend on each other financially. They always had separate rooms and everything. I never thought it was weird. I just always thought marriage wasn't for me. Because it looked like it was pointless and overall a pain in the ass. Eventually I graduated high school, moved out, and started dating. That's when I realized you can actually like your partner and prefer to be around them. I just had no idea. My mom has spent decades with men who were horrible and abusive. Basically she starts planning an escape from them from day one of the guy showing abuse. So when I got older, I would start planning my own escapes from guys who weren't even abusive or anything. I was just used to that mentality of getting away from the guy and having life be way better without them. Now that I've been with my main squeeze for years and years, I really had to stop and think like wait, I actually enjoy being around him and everything is fine. I don't need to escape. Oh man. My first serious, for a teenager, girlfriend had had some hitty controlling relationships. After we'd been dating for a little while and stuff was going well, she said something like I like you too much. I have to break up with you. Bye. A few days later she came back and said, I don't understand. I always felt so relieved after leaving someone before. I made a mistake. I was so confused by the whole situation. I was still trying to figure out how to react to her breaking up with me, let alone being new and broken up with suddenly. White powder on a mirror with a razor blade and a rolled up dollar. I didn't realize what this was until about a decade later. Why on a mirror? My mom's boyfriend forbade me from ever going in the garage. They said it was dangerous. I snuck point and one day get a hammer or something, and there were plants growing under lights. This was the 80s, so you'd still get serious prison time for pot. They found out I was in there because I didn't put the thing back. I was grounded from my bike and TV for a month. Those were two very important things to my 10-year-old self. Dude. Same. Except it was my parents' garage. I forgot my keys once, and they weren't home. So I waited in the garage because it was cold. I never found anything suspicious, but I also had no idea they were hiding anything. Got my ass handed to me that day. On a related note, the cops did eventually find out about the apparent meth lab they had in there. I stayed home from school for a few days after the bust because literally the whole school knew about it, and I was too embarrassed to go back. The vice principal of the school called me to personally ask why I wasn't in school. Duck you. Guy. My parents are divorced, and I was at my mum's place exploring the attic and found one corner that was sheetrocked and opened like a door if you pushed on it. Inside was a small room with a heat lamp and a chair and coffee table and a strange octagon-shaped tower with mirrors on it. I was like 10 when I found it and didn't think much of it. I used to go in there and smoke weed when I was older. 16ish. Still didn't think anything of it. When I was 21ish I was having some Jim Beams and 7 with my dad, and I was telling him about the room, and he was like, yeah, I added that room. The octagon thing is a one plant grower I bought out to High Times in the 80s. My mom had an affair with her drug dealer Ann. When told she was unfit as a mother and had to stay in the state by the court. She told me we were going on a road trip and we all, my mom, her drug dealer, and I, drove 8 states away until a private detective found us. Edit. Okay. I'm on a 15-minute break, but I'll post more info when I get off work in approximate 3 hours. Edit 2. Sorry. This is my first week on Reddit and my first ever comment. I thought if I edited my comment it would edit the timestamp too. It did not. Promise I'm not late. Just bad at the internet. Okay. So full story. For some background. This happened when I was 9, and I'm 18 now, so I had to ask my granny for all of the details, unless you all wanted the story from a 9-yo perspective. A man moved in on the other side of my neighborhood. We'll call him Jordan for the sake of privacy. And he deals drugs. He was letting both of my parents sample them, crack, whatever that is. I don't know anything about drugs, ecstasy, etc. Together for free because he had a thing for my mom. My parents had a really horrible marriage, so it wasn't long before my mom started becoming interested. Too. When my dad realized my mom was having an affair, he went to file a divorce and try to take custody of my stepbrother. And my strung out mom's response was to just flee the state despite court orders not to, because of having to go to court for the divorce. I'm from Florida. I remember very briefly going through Maryland and Massachusetts at one point, but we weren't going on a linear pattern. Since they found us in Georgia, my grandma's lawyer had ordered a private detective. I remember not minding being on the road trip because I didn't have to go to school and they bought me. Had to do research to find this again. A Disney Hannah Montana Jack's Pacific plug and play TV electronic video game. I was alone in the hotel rooms playing that a lot. I was pretty sheltered in all of this. I woke up one morning to see my mom reading a letter from the court, crying and asking how they'd found her. And she had two choices, to bring me home and give up custody or there'd be cops on the doorstep instead of a piece of mail. So she brought me home, and I lived with my granny for about 6 months while my mom was in rehab. TL. Doctor, my mom's drug dealer swooped my mom off of her feet, so they ran away together and somehow I got brought with. Wow. What happened next? She wrote this story on Reddit.